Hello, right. I'm going to try and do this in 4K, so I need to make this a bit shorter, probably because it's going to take a long time to upload otherwise. And again, because the YouTube is not really a big concern of me for myself, I just put things on now and again when I have spare time or something that maybe helps somebody or maybe of interest to somebody somewhere. But anyway, I'm prattling on already and using time up. Right. Just going to go over a couple of things. The next thing will be to do with the TV, and I'll go through that. Arrow released Demolition Man Collector's Edition 4K. Cheesy, great film. Comes with quite a few extras in there as well. Alien Romulus Steelbook. Really nice print, really nice soundtrack, Atmos-wise and stuff. That was really good. Film is not as good as it should have been. I have issues with it. I think a few people do, but it's one of those, it could have been better and it could have been worse, but it's fine. It's not bad. And Seven Samurai, really nice print, considering how old the film is and the fact that obviously it is what it is in black and white. But yeah, there's a reason why this has been copied, I think 4 times now. I think they did 3 Magnificent Sevens and Battle Beyond the Stars. I'm not sure if they did anything more, but yeah, awesome film. Right. As to the TV situation, I had the LG C9. I had that for 5 years. Best TV I ever had. Longevity, picture, sound, everything worked the way it should have done. Now, obviously, when I talk about TVs, my experience could be night and day difference to what somebody else is. Somebody else could have got that TV and it broke on day 1, or they had nothing but nightmares with it. So this is just what I experienced. But the C9 was the best TV I ever had. And typical, it goes like watch. But yeah, so it was the best TV I ever had. It could do everything I wanted to do with the PC and gaming, 120 hertz, all that kind of thing. Dolby Vision, HDR, DTS pass through, everything. Ticked all the boxes, and there's a reason why that TV was so sought after and why it sold so well and why so many people kept hold of that TV for so long. But the 5-year warranty was up and I wanted to upgrade because obviously new TVs have got brighter and stuff. So I went for the LG G4. Now, anyone who's watched any previous video or maybe bumped into one of the forums, that if somebody came up to me and said, right, you got 2.5 grand for a 65 inch TV, which one would you buy right now? And say, just for the regular person, just to plug in, use your consoles, PC, everything else, without a doubt, the LG G4, not a problem at all, job done. Now, why don't I have it? Well, anybody had seen it, I came across an issue, and it's been an issue supposedly now for about 5+ years for LG with the OLEDs, is on the screen, maybe if I put that one that way, right down the middle, there was a very faint line. Now, 98% of the time, you probably never notice it. I could probably put it on the screen and show someone and they'd still go, I don't see what you're on about. But it's there. And it's a very faint line, goes right down the middle of the screen. And it was only in certain content or slow panning things or films with set colours in the background, or you maybe notice it on like things like ice hockey or football. Certainly films like The Martian, one of the Blade Runners 2049, Interstellar, I noticed it on there. But again, you have to know what you're looking for. But it's one of those things that once you see it, you become aware of it and you start looking for it. It's somebody in one of the forums that had mentioned it, and then I compared mine. There was a test on YouTube that you can run to test your TV, which I'll link again to this one, but it's more so in the previous video. And on there, you can actually see what it does. It's not banding, it's not a bad gate, it's not a loose ribbon. It's something which has happened with the LG TVs for a long time. Now that I've researched it, I found things going back like literally for 5 years. Different ones seem to be worse than others. Some engineer guy online reckoned it was something to do with they split the screen in two, the panel in two, and there's a controller, different one for each side, or there's something to do with the buffer for each side, and they're out of sync and something. It's stuff that was way above my head, and I was just like, sounds about right, okay. But it's been going for a long time. Some people have had the panels changed, and it's fixed the problem. Sometimes they've had the panels changed and it's exactly the same. Sometimes they've changed the TV, it's exactly the same. With mine, I went down to the showroom, told them, and I think they were a bit skeptical. So we tried it on the G4 there. It did it. I thought I would take the step down and go to the C4, thinking it was maybe just the MLA panels that LG was using in the G4. So we tried the C4 and it did it. And I was quite shocked. It's not as bad on the C4 because it's not as bright, so it's harder to notice. We moved over to the S95D Samsung, just to obviously peace of mind, nothing. And then again, like I say, now I've spent more time online. I've literally found hundreds and hundreds of people going back over the past 5 years with this problem. I mean, the guy in the showroom literally said, he said, we've sold hundreds and hundreds of these TVs and no one said anything. And that's the thing about it. If a regular person, regularly just sitting down to watch it, would probably never ever see it in the whole time that they own that TV, unless somebody points it out to them. And again, if you have an LG TV and you're happy with everything, don't do that test thing, which I talked about in the previous one, because I've had people say my TV's okay, go away, they've run the test and they've looked at it and went, crap, now I can see that line. I wish I'd never done it now. So again, certainly if you've just got the TV and something like that bothers you and you're within the time to return it or swap it or whatever, it's worthwhile giving it a check. But if you pass that time, there's no point doing anything that's just going to stress you out more. So anyway, I ended up with the Samsung one, which originally was going to be a bit of a setback to myself, mainly because years ago, when TVs were getting things like Dolby Vision and stuff, I had to have it, had to have this, I had to have that. Living with Dolby Vision and HDR and HDR10 Plus and things, I don't miss Dolby Vision one bit. Originally, everything I had to watch in Dolby Vision, but after a while, I started noticing that yes, it's reference, but there's just no pop to it. It didn't grab me. And then I started thinking, is that just me? And I started going into the forums, and I'm not alone. There's a lot of other people who are just like, I just prefer HDR or HDR10. Yes, it's not as reference, but it just has a bit more pop to it. And the Dolby Vision is just, can be a bit more lacking. But if that's your thing, fair enough. The next one was DTS. Now, DTS pass-through is not a problem to me at all, mainly because I hate DTS, and I have done for decades. I've never liked it. Dolby, surround and then digital, and now Atmos, they all behave and I can control them and they all do what they're supposed to do. Obviously some films are mastered differently and the volume goes, the peak level's a bit higher and stuff, but they all pretty much do what you expect and they all sound great and they're easy to control. DTS has always been a problem for me. Doesn't matter what system I've used it on, I've always had to sit there with a remote control, unless you live in a big house and sound and stuff is not a problem to you. But if you're living in a house like I am, I'm a bit more careful for the neighbours, as it were. So I literally sit there with a remote control with the DTS, because with DTS you always get a lot more peaks. Yes, there's things you can do with your amps and things, but I just can't be bothered altering things just for certain films because it doesn't always work either. So I have to sit there with the remote control and go, oh, speech, turn speech up. Oh, explosions, turn explosions down. Don't have that problem with digital. Now, anything from my PC that's DTS or any film that's DTS just gets converted to its own version of digital. Now, I have a handy thing on my Marantz amp. It won't actually show on here, but I can do I have 5.1 and I also have 4 Atmos speakers as well. But you can actually do a setting on here where it'll take the DTS signal, it'll turn it to a digital surround, and it'll also use the height speakers. So it makes like a fake Atmos, which is really smart. So in my particular case, Dolby Vision I don't miss because I actually prefer with the HDR because of the pop. And the DTS, I really don't miss that at all, because usually if I watch the film in DTS, unless there was some real reason why I had to have it in DTS, I normally turned it onto that thing and changed it to digital. That's for myself anyway. Right, as for the screen and as for everything else, right, well, for anybody who knows about this TV, it is actually a matte screen for this one. Now, when I saw this one, the missus instantly liked it, but I was just like, oh, gloss, gloss, gloss. And I can't actually do it justice by describing what it is about this screen that just works. Now when it turned up, one of the things which I did notice, in fact what I'll actually try and quickly do, is I'll go through the pros and cons of what I discovered with these TVs. Let's go try and grab something. One of the things I hate about Samsung TVs is their remote controls. Come from LG, which has obviously got the wand. The wand is a great controller, works, everything works, love it. Mrs. is heartbroken that we don't have it now. But anyway, so Samsung are still dissing this thing out. This thing is ancient and I hate it, horrible. But they always give you another controller. I've put this white one here just because it's easy to spot in the dark. With this thing, it's that, but streamlined down. This is great, this works great. This is the thing that you use. Once you set your TV up with all these kind of things, this is the one that you basically use. It's got a little charger on there and it's also solar powered. So that's pretty neat. But I would rather this all came as a Warner, and I know they can't have the technology for the one because LG probably have the patent for that. So, but I would prefer just maybe this a little bit bigger with a little bit more stuff on there. But anyway, with the LG, its negatives. When I had the C9, one of the things I noticed was there was a slight tint at the edge of your screen. It was only slight, and it was only more so when I was using it for the PC things, really. The rest of the time, you didn't really notice it. And I did, when I got the G4, I was actually quite surprised to see that the pink tint was there, and it was more so than what the C was. The rest of the panel, for the whole grayscale and uniformity and stuff, wasn't perfect. I would say it was above average. It was a good one. But this pink tint thing, I was actually quite surprised. I was like, it's 5 years on, and that's not any better. So that was one of the things which snarked about that. So yeah, there was the line and the tint, but the TV does tick the box for everything else. It looks good, it plays good. The things I'm pointing out is more so for like movie connoisseurs or tech people, such that will sit down there and scrutinize something. Most average person who just comes in and turns the TV on or turns a movie on or has kids running around or wants to put the console on would never notice, and the things I point out would never bother them probably. This is more so for somebody who sits there and scrutinizes things or looks into things. They would probably notice the things I'm on about. But so yeah, those were the little things which I didn't necessarily like about the LG. I think what it is the OLED panels that they're using is that LG are really trying to milk it as much as they can, rather than doing like what Samsung did, where they moved on to the next kind of technology. I think LG are just trying to get every last thing they can out of it. Kind of like what Intel do with the processors, where instead of moving on to the next socket kind of thing, they milk and try and squeeze everything else out they can out of that generation before they do finally move on. And I think this is kind of like LG's thing. Well, LG make a hell of a lot of panels, and they make a lot of panels for other companies and stuff. There's a lot of people said, "Oh, my TV, such and such," and it's like, yeah, but you've got an LG panel in there, mate. But I don't think it maybe as much now. I think I'd have to check on that. But I know a few years ago, there was loads of panels by different companies they were using, and they were all LG made. So it was quite funny to hear people praise one company when it's actually an LG panel. But yeah, I wish they would move on. I don't think they will for 2025. I think it'll be 2026 before they probably do, but we'll have to wait and see. But anyway, so that's the things I didn't like. As for the screen on the S95D, when it comes to tint, no tint whatsoever on mine. The uniformity and everything is perfect. One of the things I did notice, and one of the best films for seeing it, is The Martian. Is on the C9, and obviously because it was an older one now, so I expect it. But on the G4, I noticed what you have color gradation in the skies, and because of all the block colors and stuff that you have in there, it's a very good film for showing it off. I actually watched. I have an open map version of The Martian, which gives you like a full screen of it. Beautiful, and I was literally just sitting there, and it's like it was the first time my son had seen the film, and he liked it, and I was more so sitting there just going, there's no band, there's no color. Wow. I think this is mainly because the QLED monitors, panels that they use can handle a lot more colors, so it can do that the gradation a lot better. As for the whole matte thing, Right. Probably easiest way, I'll try and do a quick demo through the power of pressing pause. Bear with us a second. Right. Now, as you can see there, there's lights here, there's lights up there. We've got a big chandelier thing with 5 lights on it, which is the reflection thing here. If this had been the C9 or the G4, you'd have a big reflection of myself. You'd have everything that's behind me. You'd have the chandelier, you'd have the fireplace over here kind of thing. You would basically have a black mirror now with this kind of black that's on the screen. With here, you can see that it is slightly raised blacks, but you don't see the reflection at all. Now I'll actually kickstart that. Now this is the phone, and this is YouTube, so it is what it is, unfortunately. And these are fireworks going off. I'm trying to do it in such a way that it shows the TV at its worst by showing that chandelier light on there, because if I actually go and sit down, you don't see that. So I'm trying to shoot it in such a way that you can purposely see where that chandelier light thing is. Now again, if I was on the C9 or the G4, I would have that big reflection up at the top there. The blacks would be slightly blacker, but I would have a nice reflection of everything. I would have the reflection of my Christmas tree, my fireplace, and the light itself, and obviously me as well. But you don't have that. And this is in the room now. It's getting to afternoon, and I say we have this big light thing. There's 5 lights on there. So to me, that it can do that, and that's what you're losing as such. And again, this is at its worst, because if you go and sit down properly, you get a different angle. So that's that one. And then what I'll do, if I can find it, and back again. So now this is the room with the light off. Again, we have a big window there as well, right behind it. So you can still see that there is light outside. We're in, let's say, afternoon now. And going by the G4 and the C9, more so the G4 because it's a newer one, but those blacks are exactly the same as what I would get on there. Apart from, I would still have a few reflections on there. It's just one of those things, like I say, you got a light there. But again, it's not the best thing to see, because I can see where this YouTube thing's messing up because of the streaming quality and everything else. But sitting here, and I'm a picky person, if anyone has ever watched my stuff about how I like things to be right, it's really, really good. Probably going to move on to the next thing. But anyway, so what was the things I have noticed is that certainly when it gets to afternoon, and certainly the evening and nighttime viewing, is that watching films on this TV is better than the G4. It's really hard to explain why. And I couldn't make sense of it, because at first I was trying to get used to it. It was like, I don't know, is it just there's something? And then it clicked. It's a movie screen. When you go to obviously the cinema, the screen's just a matte screen. And it kind of started to make sense as to something else, which I'll come back to in a second, is that the picture looked how it should do. Now, when you have a glossy screen, it doesn't matter what they do to it. Obviously, they've improved with reflection and stuff over the years, but there's always a slight sheen to a glossy screen. You'll get your deep dark blacks with your OLED, but there's always a slight sheen. Now, when you're used to it, you don't think about it. It's not something you notice. But in real life, if you look at, say, like a dark alley or black clothing, it shouldn't have a sheen to it. It's matte, it's clothing, it's cloth. Or you look at a night sky, there shouldn't be that slight sheen to it. And again, most people won't know what the hell I'm talking about or even notice it. And it wasn't until I actually started looking and just thinking, well, yeah, you don't have that in real life. A night sky doesn't have a sheen to it. And that's why this other thing kind of makes sense to me as well, is that when I went back and I had a look on YouTube at some of these different reviews and things, I found the 2024 shootout with HD TV test with Vincent, where he and some other people go along. They calibrate all the TV. I think they calibrated the new Sony, the G4 and the S95D. And then they obviously do a blind test. And there's different categories like SDR, HDR, daytime, HDR, nighttime, streaming and other such things. And if I remember rightly, on the one when it came to best home theatre screen, so basically that's what you'd watch in, say, like late afternoon or nighttime, or like your dark room kind of viewing. The S95D won. It beat the Sony, it beat the G4. I thought it's a bit strange. I then went to Value Electronics. They have a one where they get even more people in, all these calibrators and reviewers. Again, they calibrate all the screens, but they have more TVs this time. And they did their different categories that going down. And the one that won for the HDR, like nighttime viewing, was the S95D again. Now, it's strange that in both categories, on both sides of the ocean there, you're looking at, like, say, 20 calibrators and reviewers, they pick the S95D, and I think it's because of the matte screen. I think that there is a very subtle difference there, where the blacks that should show black true to life, it does, but at the same time, it can still do, obviously, highlights and sheen when it needs to do those things, but it can also do the things where it actually should be represented as matte. It can do matte better, because obviously it doesn't have that sheen to deal with. It's one of those hard things to try and explain. You do need to kind of see it. That still doesn't change my opinion that if you've got, say, $2.5 grand and you want to get a 65-inch TV and you just want it to tick all the boxes, G4. I wouldn't even look at the Samsung one, just G4. If you just want something that does just everything, yeah, I would just go with that. Even with the issues and things I pointed out, that one. If you're willing to forego certain things and you don't mind missing out on a few of the things and you don't mind these kind of things, and again, it could be an hour from now and this TV blows up, not my luck, but if you're willing to forego that and you just want a panel that looks great through the day, you don't have to get up and draw the blinds like I do with the C9 and the G4, where if I was playing a certain game, I'd have to get up and draw the blinds because any light on the screen, you just can't see what you're doing, especially if there's a lot of black in the game. You just couldn't see what you're doing, you had to close the curtains. If you want a panel that helps with that, and then when it gets to this time of day, and obviously as the day goes on, and if I'm going to sit down and watch something properly, it's going to be late afternoon, more so on the evening, nighttime really. This is the better panel. There's none of the tint. Uniformity is amazing. The colours are better. The gradation is better. And the way the matte thing works on a nighttime viewing is just, I had the G4 for 2 weeks and I really liked it. But then when I put this on and I started watching some films, I'm like, damn, I was hoping it would be equal. I didn't actually think it would be better. But again, this is purely just for the visual experience of the panel. The other things, I would still give the nod to LG for. Anyway, and that was no pun. But I'm just going to ramble now. This was meant to be shorter than this, but that's just my thoughts on it. Again, I've not had the TV very long. After it's done about 100 hours, 200 hours, I might look into doing the whole calibration thing, because the picture will actually get even better still. And also sometimes you find the blacks start settling out a bit as well. So I need to give that a bit of time, and then I need to try and figure out what I want to do calibration wise, as to whether it's worthwhile doing the whole Kalman thing for Samsung. It's a bit annoying that you have to buy one. I know you can get the one that does all TVs, but it's stupidly expensive. So I might just look at the one that's just purely just for Samsung, and hope I get 5 years out of it before I move on to the next thing. But I will say this though, if Samsung are still doing the whole matte screen thing the next time around, and obviously I don't know what they're going to be doing on other such things and what LG is going to be doing, but whether it be LG or whether it be Samsung, if there is a matte screen thing available in my particular house where I'm sitting right now, I would go to the matte. I would not look at the gloss. I would definitely go with this matte. I've seen what it can do now. And again, if you're on the fence about it, it's one of these things. If you can find a good sales place that don't mind you taking it home, maybe having it for a week or two. If you don't like it, swap it, do so, because it'll be different for different houses. Kind of like this TV won't work in certain houses because of certain lighting maybe on it and stuff like that, and it bothers you more than what reflections bother you. Whereas, again, you could get a one with the gloss screen, stick in a certain room, and unless you're pulling all the curtains, you just can't even see a single thing that's going on the TV. So again, both TVs kind of need tested out in whatever premises they're going into, because I have seen some obviously gloss TVs that, depending if the light hits the screen, unless you draw on the curtains, you can't see anything. So anyway, that's my thoughts on it. Yeah, bye.